So, like I do, that public exposure of your private problems can be a big, big deal, particularly in the world of professional sports. It's hard to not talk about the situation that we've discovered recently with Shannon Sharp, Club Shay Shay, Uncle Shay, right? What a challenge, what a problem, what a shock in many ways to many people. And yet the truth is, it's not very shocking at all, because we've seen this so much. We've seen it in our society. We've seen it with professional athletes, people in very public spaces, in business, and other entertainment areas. This is not new, but it's never fun to see happen. And so let's just be clear that this doesn't have to happen, and we're all human, right? This is not an excuse. This is not a pass. Yes, it's horrible. We're not going to skip over that, but we're human. People are human, and people don't get to have big platforms and not be human. Again, let me just re-emphasize. I'm not saying that this is excusable, that there's something good about it on the part of either person. I don't know the other person, but having been a chaplain for 14 seasons in the NFL, having been around guys like Shannon, in fact, having been around Shannon when he was a part of our first championship team with the Baltimore Ravens back in the day, I had nothing but love for Shannon. Fun guy, funny guy, Mr. Hilarious, amazing discipline, amazing work ethic, super smart guy. And so maybe you're asking, like, well, Ryan, why you couldn't help your guy? Like, listen, that ain't even a fair question, right? We're all human is all I'm saying. What I do think is important is that we talk about some of the reasons why these kinds of things happen in people's lives. Now, we can track back through, and I'm not trying to name drop. Justin Tucker is going through something in his career now. Ray Rice went through something in his career. Steve Smith has gone through something recently. What in the world is going on? And it's amazing to me how so many people make so little out of these circumstances, right? We have a way of making silly and funny out of stuff that really is, it's really irresponsible, is what I would say. It's really irresponsible because we're forgetting that we are influencing society, and we're trying to raise kids and influence kids who are going to have to figure out how to live and how to really be who they're supposed to be. And so when adults make silly out of all of it, right, and just sort of sign on to it like this is, it's just another thing, it's really unfortunate. And I'm kind of on a rant right now because I'm concerned about what we're leaving the next generation with, what we're passing on to the next generation of our young men, our young women. What are we saying to them? And so if I could speak to my friends who are in the world of professional sports, I want to give you 3 things that you want to really become aware of so that you don't damage the precious platform that you stand on, because you may not get it back. You may not get it back. All right, so let's talk about this. Here's the first principle. Money is really overrated. It's really overrated. When I first became a chaplain in the NFL way back in the late 90s, it became really apparent to me that you can become a great athlete, you can make a lot of money, and you can still be have very significant deficits in terms of your development. Right? That's not a put down. It's just a reality. Here's a principle. Money can buy you a lot of things, but money cannot buy you character. Let me drop that one more time for some of y'all who are really just trying to catch me, right? Money can buy you a lot of things, but money can't buy you character. Character must be developed. It cannot be purchased. Character is what we develop from the inside out. It is what we develop when we say yes to the things that are yesable. It's what we develop when we say no to the things that are, we should say no to. It's what we develop when we develop the ability to delay our gratification. It's what we develop when we align ourselves with principles that are long-standing. I believe in the principles of the Bible. You don't have to, but when we develop our lives around principles that don't change, because we know that the principle is the key thing. If you don't develop the principles in your life, then you cannot become who you were designed to be. You can't become your best person if you don't develop character in your life. The word that the Bible uses for character is the word ethos. Isn't that interesting? It's ethos. And that word for ethos has to do with who we become based on what we do consistently. Who we become based on what we do consistently. So it's important just to remember, like, you can't buy character. Now, if you compromise your character, you may never get your platform back. I remember one night I was flying from, I don't know where, some trip with the team. And one of the young guys, like, he was trying to make the team. He was always on, he was on the bubble. And I'm watching this dude, you know, he's on the phone. We can't even get the wheels down on the ground, right? Because everybody's pulling out their cell phones and making their plans, like what they're going to do, what parties they're going to. And he was hollering at a chick on the phone. I was like, homeboy, who you hollering at? Oh, come on, Rev, you know what's up. I was like, yeah, I know what's up, bro. I said, but just remember, if you don't work on becoming who you're supposed to be, you won't be here very long. He looked at me. I know he wanted to drop a bomb on me, like one of those bombs. But he just kind of looked at me and turned away. He was cut the next week. See, I could see that he wasn't developing the kind of character that was going to keep him around the game. You're like, well, yeah, Rev or Rod, you know, that's what they used to call me when I was a chaplain, right? But yeah, a lot of guys stay around the game because they're talented. Yeah, they do. But eventually a lack of character will catch up with you. You can have an amazing, extraordinary career, but the longer you delay developing your character, who you are on the inside, the more likely it is that you will lose your platform, lose your opportunities, see your name fall, because the Bible says that a good name is more to be desired than riches, than wealth, than gold and silver, right? You want to have a good name above anything, because if I got a good name, I can always get an open door. But if I got a terrible name, doors will close and close swiftly. All right, so let me just say, money can buy most anything, but it cannot buy character. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. What are you thinking about? What are you spending your time ruminating on? All right, as you think, so you become. Let me give you a formula that I learned from Myron Golden, and I kind of added my own twist to this. Myron says, right, from beginning with Genesis and all throughout the scriptures, right, be, do, have. You can't have it if you don't become it. And then you have to do it consistently so that you can have it, right? It's be, do, have. Who you become is who you will be. Did I say that right? You're going to be it, do it, have it. You can't have it if you don't be it. In other words, your character is going to determine what you end up with. But there's another piece to this. Be, do, have, give. Because you cannot give people what you're not. You cannot give people what you're not. They're always going to get who you are. And you're going to pass something off. You're going to give something off. Be, do, have, give. What are you giving off? Based on who you are, based on who you be, based on what you do, based on what you have developed, what you have on the inside of your life. Be, do, have. I hope this is making sense to you. It's making a lot of sense to me. All right. So what's broken on the inside eventually shows up on the outside. I have a saying with my clients when we're working on growing their emotional connection, right? Most of the athletes that I work with say, I have never had this kind of understanding of my own emotions. I don't even know how to feel, some of them tell me. So, but what's broken on the inside eventually shows up on the outside. What do you mean by that? Everything you see on the outside begins on the inside. That's a really, really important principle for us to get, right? When you see tragic stories like what we're seeing in Shannon's story, that didn't begin yesterday. That didn't begin with an activity, with sexual activity. This began a long time ago with what was happening on the inside of his life. And I say Shannon, but we can be talking about anybody, right? Anybody who loses their platform. We can go and talk about the number of actors in Hollywood and business people, and right. I'm not putting anyone down. I'm simply saying there's something that happens on the inside that leads to what we do on the outside. And you cannot fix the outside until you fix the inside. I hope you're catching this, because I'm trying to deliver as clearly and as plainly and as powerfully as I can. See, most athletes are taught to perform. That is an outward behavior. And so they get celebrated for, you get celebrated for your performance. You get celebrated for how well you perform. I got one client who grew up in a Christian household, and all he did was perform for his parents, because they, you had to sit a certain way, be a certain way, behave a certain way, right? It was all about performance. And so he learned to perform. He learned not only to perform as a great athlete, but he learned to perform for people, if you will, so that they never really got the real him. And the more he focused on performing, the emptier he felt. So he didn't know how to feel. He didn't know how to deal with his emotions. And so when he was up, he felt good. But when he was down, he felt horrible. And this led to an emotional affair that almost destroyed his marriage. And when we began working together, he said, I don't even know anything about this emotion stuff. I just need you to fix my problem. I said, well, we can't fix your problem if we can't help you begin to understand what did it feel like being you growing up, having to perform all the time. Once we began to explore that, we began to get to the root of things. And let me tell you something. He has become one of my absolute best clients in terms of progress and growth and maturity. And I want you to know that you can recover from anything. If any of you are going through this, but you got to work on the inside. You got to work on who you are. 3 things as a part of your inside that are important to work on. One is your mindset. Remember, I shared the scripture, as a man thinks, so is he, right? You cannot live beyond what you think. You cannot transcend your thoughts in your life. So you have to work on your mindsets. Why do you believe what you believe? Why do you hold on to these beliefs that are not serving you? Why do you believe that you're only as valuable as your performance? Why do you believe that you need everybody to celebrate you? Why do you believe that you're not valuable without adulation? This is a challenge with a lot of people in the sports world. And so I help them begin to see, no, you're valuable whether you have those things or not, right? And so it's important that we work on the inside. So mindsets is one. The next one is faith. Faith is learning how to believe, how would I say this? How to believe rather than doubt, right? Doubt is not the absence of faith. Doubt is putting our trust in that which is not reliable. Right? When you doubt something, you believe something else. You believe in something that is probably not, helpful, useful. But we have to develop faith, because faith is the evidence of things not seen, says the Bible. Right? It's our confidence in what is possible. And when you don't have strong faith, you can be taken quickly and taken deep into something that's not helpful to you, because you start believing in something else. You can believe in sex as the fix for your life. You can believe in drugs as the fix for your life. You can believe that, if you just have more money, you'll be satisfied, right? Those are false. Those are horrible beliefs. This is a horrible belief system, but a lot of people have it. So you have to nurture real faith. And then you want to nurture your emotional life. Your emotional life is simply what's ticking on the inside that's motivating you to do what you do, think what you think, right? We have 5 basic emotions. Some people say 6, some people say 7: fear, anger, sadness, shock, and did I leave one out? Fear, anger, sadness, shock. I'll get back to it. One of them, by the way, I believe is shame. But if you don't know when those emotions are working in you, if you're not aware of your emotional life, what happens is we go and we try to anesthetize those, especially the negative emotions, when they're happening to us. Joy, that was the one I missed. Fear, anger, sadness, surprise, joy. And then let's talk about shame at some point. So if you don't know what's happening on the inside of you, and most of the athletes that I've worked with, if they struggle with pornography, if they have struggled with infidelity, oftentimes when they struggle with depression or anxiety, I try to coach them to become more aware of themselves emotionally, so that they can develop the mindset and the faith that will help them succeed. This keeps people from crashing and doing things that they will regret if they do it. And so these internal parts of our lives have to be developed, nurtured, and grow, because otherwise we will give into some horrible coping strategies. And coping strategies is simply how we learn to exist in the world, to anesthetize pain, distress, negative things that are going on in our world. And these coping strategies, whether it's pornography, whether it's, getting down with dog collars, I can't even, right? These are coping strategies, right? Addictions are coping strategies, right? And the longer you nurse a coping strategy because you haven't worked on the inside of your life, the more catastrophic the fall can be. Did we talk about narcissism? We should talk about narcissism in another video, because it's a real thing, and it's part of what happens as people habituate bad coping strategies. All right, let's talk about this last part of what athletes should really pay attention to, become aware of, and that is the bigger your public platform becomes, the deeper and stronger your foundation must be. There's a parable in the Bible that Jesus tells in Matthew chapter 7, and he talks about a man. He says, everyone who hears these sayings of mine when he's given the Sermon on the Mount and does them, he will be like a wise man who built his house on a rock, on the rock. And another translation says that he dug deep and built. He says, then the rain came down, the winds blew, the flood rose, and they beat against that house. And he says, but that house stood. He said, but everyone who hears these sayings of mine and doesn't do them, he said, he's like a foolish person who built his house on the sand. Same rain, same winds, same floods. He said, and great was its collapse. Jesus was trying to help us see that our foundation in life, principally a strong relationship with him, where we let him be the center of our lives. Listen, I'm not here to preach to you. I'm just telling you the story. I'm trying to help you see that if you build a strong foundation, the winds and the challenges and the temptations and all of those ways of trying to cope with life don't consume you, right? And if you're going to have a big platform, Big is relative, right? It's relative to what platform, you know, God gives you, right? You may not have someone else's platform, but if you got to listen, if you're a professional athlete, if you and your spouse are professional people in the world of sports, listen, you got a big platform. And with big platforms come big challenges, big temptations, big invitations. Come on, somebody help me right now talk about this. If you don't have a strong foundation, it can happen just like that. Just like that. And oftentimes, it's not the first wind that blows, it's the 20th wind. It may not be the first storm, it may be the 50th storm, but at some point you will if you don't have a strong foundation, the storm will be cataclysmic for your career, for your marriage, your relationship, for your children. And I'm telling you, right, divorce is expensive. The pain of public shaming and all of that is costly, it's hurtful, it's painful. Can you recover? Absolutely, anybody can recover. But I'm saying to you, I want to encourage you, I want to challenge you. Focus on these three things. Think about these three things. Build these three things into your conscience, right? That money can buy most things, but it can't buy you character. It can buy beautiful cars. It can buy beautiful houses. It can't buy you a great marriage or a night of sleep, and it cannot buy you character, right? Your character will keep you in places where your money can't. Yeah, right? You can listen, somebody can open a door for you, but how long you stay will be dependent on your character. I don't want to rehash this too long, right? But it's a character piece. And you want to remember that money can't buy you character. You want to remember that what's broken on the inside eventually shows up on the outside. This is why you want to do some internal work in your life, right? You need a good coach. Yeah, let me just go ahead and pitch that to you. You need a good coach to help you work through those coping strategies, those ways that you kind of feel like, man, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to do it this way, right? You got to fix the inside, because what's broken on the inside eventually shows up on the outside. And the bigger your public platform becomes, the deeper and the stronger your foundation must be. You can win, but you'll have to turn to a different approach so that you can sustain a great career, you can sustain a great family life, a great marriage. Think about what children go through when their well-known parents have scandal attached to their names. And again, we've seen it for a long time, but what I'm telling you, it's quite possible to avoid that if you pay attention to your character, if you pay attention to your inner world, and if you build a very strong foundation. Hey, I'm Rod Harrison. I'm glad we had a chance to be together today. I hope this was helpful to you. I want you to know that we're all human. We all make mistakes, right? But you want to avoid some of these major mistakes. You can avoid these major mistakes if you'll work on the right things in your life, your relationship, and your internal world. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Hit me up. Which part of this spoke most to you? What questions do you have? I'd love to answer some questions in the comments. All right, peace. I'll see you in the next video.